Hey there and welcome back. Here we are, part 3 of our trilogy on priorities. I love a good trilogy. If I think back to the original Star Wars, Jedi was my favorite. I wonder what your favorite trilogy and your favorite movie is. Tell me next time that we catch up. Let's get stuck into it today by starting with a quick review. We've been looking at time. Time is a valuable resource. It's the most valuable out of any resource, whether it be money or information. And time cannot be wasted. Time management is about establishing your priorities, those big rocks, and using your time wisely so you can get the important stuff done. In week 1 of our priorities series, we looked at priorities. What are they? They are the big rocks, the most important things in your day that need to be done. They're the non-negotiables that's going to help you move closer toward your goals and that vision that you want to achieve over the next 20, 30 years. At the other end of the continuum, we have time bandits. We looked at that in last week's session. Time bandits are the things that rob you of your time that you have 100% control over. And remember, what we mean by that is that you can't control all the interruptions from your kids, your spouse, or when the internet goes down, but you can control how much you allow it to impact on your time. Time management strategies are about making the best use of our time so we can get those priorities done and avoid spending too much time on those time bandits. So we want to apply time management strategies so we can create what we call margin. Margin is that gap of time in our schedule that we can actually fill with other stuff that's either really important or the fun stuff. And we can also use that to attend to crises, emergencies. And by having margin in our day, we're going to feel more in control. So I'm going to introduce you to a really popular time management strategy called the Covey's Time Management Matrix. It was created by Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we've got 4 quadrants, and each of the tasks that you have on your schedule, we can actually put that into one of 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is for tasks that are urgent and important. Urgent simply means that the task has a deadline. It has a deadline that basically says you need to do this right now. And it's an important task, meaning if you don't do it, there's going to be some consequences. So quadrant 1, it's red for a reason. If we spend a lot of time in quadrant 1, we're going to feel stressed. We're going to feel like we're spinning our wheels. We're going to feel out of control. We're going to feel like it's one of those days where we just don't have time. Okay. Quadrant 2 is the heart of Covey's matrix. And these are tasks that are not urgent, but they're important. And if we spend a lot of time in quadrant 1, this is good because we're going to be progressing toward our goals, toward our vision. I'll talk you through some examples of quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4 tasks in the next slide. Quadrant 3 is for tasks that are urgent but not important. Urgent meaning there's a deadline approaching, but it's okay if they're not done. Now, the problem is if we spend too much time in our day sitting in quadrant 3, doing these quadrant 3 tasks, we're going to be idling. We're not going to be moving forward or regressing. Quadrant 4, sadly, many of us spend a lot of time in quadrant 4. These are tasks that are not urgent and they're not important, okay, the time bandits. And a lot of those are sand tasks as well that we looked at in the first of the series. And if we spend a lot of time in quadrant 4, we'll go backwards. We are going to be regressing, which we don't want. Now, the key here is to spend as much time as possible over here in quadrant 2, tending to these tasks that are not urgent and important and moving toward our goals. So let's look at some examples of these tasks. Quadrant 1, emergencies, major issues that happen around the home that we need to tend to. Demands from the boss or from the spouse, major tasks are due. Remember, this is the stressing stage. I'm sure you've felt like you've been in quadrant 1 many, many days, and at the end of the day, you feel like you've got nothing done and you feel like you don't have much time. Quadrant 2, these are the tasks that we want to always, always, always chip away at, okay? Relationships, important relationships with our spouse, our kids, and so forth. Sleep and nutrition, exercise, meal prepping. We could throw studying and professional development and learning in there. Quadrant 3, remember these are the urgent but not important tasks. Apparent emergencies, so maybe they're important for other people. Minor issues that it's okay if they don't get done, even if there's a deadline coming up. Not so important kids' requests. Okay, a lot of things my kids ask me are actually not that important. They don't need to be done straight away. Remember, that's the idling stage, quadrant 3. Quadrant 4 is our not urgent, not important stage, and they're the mindless tasks, the scrolling on social media, excessive TV, procrastination, lots of interruptions, all of those things that we don't need to focus our time on. Okay. Now, there's a couple of key things here. We want to chip away at things like relationships, and we could throw study in there as an example. Let's say I'm talking to my wife regularly, investing in quality time with my kids regularly. I'm going to avoid relationships from jumping into quadrant 1. But let's say I don't talk to my wife for 2 weeks. Pretty much within that 2-week mark or even earlier, that relationship with my wife is going to jump into a quadrant 1. Let me give you another example. Let's say I'm studying for a test and the test is in 2 weeks. At the moment, that test would be a quadrant 2. But if I forget about it, or I'm not prioritizing, I'm not planning regularly, let's say the night before the test comes along, oh, it becomes a quadrant 1. And I've allowed it to fall from a quadrant 2 into a quadrant 1. Now, here's the other aspect of Covey's matrix. Do you want to create margin? Do you want more time? Well, what we need to do is spend more time in quadrant 2, and don't worry about quadrant 3s or 4s. We do them once we've got our quadrant 2s done, our priorities. These are our big rocks, remember? Once we've got these done, then we'll have some time to also tend to our emergencies, our quadrant 1s. And once we've got on top of everything, there's no emergencies, we can then jump into quadrant 3, do a little bit here, and then potentially we can do a bit in quadrant 4 as well. So we're actually going to lop off a large chunk of our day and those tasks by focusing our time and attention on quadrant 2 and not allowing them to jump into quadrant 1, and also not focusing our time on the wrong things. So here's the crux. Spend most of your time in quadrant 2, eliminate your task 4s, create margin to do task 1s, and only do task 3s when you have everything else done. Let's talk about a couple of other useful time management strategies. Number 1, do it right the first time. This saves you having to go back and fix your own mistakes, which is a huge time waster. Number 2, perform in your prime time. For me, I'm most alert in the morning. So that's when I'll do the tough tasks that really require a lot of brain power. For you, it might be after lunch or in the evenings. Number 3, defeat distractions. Switch off your audible alerts, like your SMS alerts and notifications from your phone or emails. Number 4, plan your day and your week ahead, including meal prepping. Plan your work priorities and plan other priorities like spending quality time with your partner or your kids, your nutrition, your exercise, and so forth. Number 5, keep it clean. Make your bed. Clear the dishes at the end of the night from the drying rack and keep your house as tidy as you can. We've got 3 kids and I'm not expecting a show home. I've got to be realistic. But we want the house to be fairly clean and tidy and toys put away and so forth. A messy environment and too much clutter is emotionally draining, okay? And it can prevent me from concentrating and focusing on the right things. At least if I have a crappy day, I can lay down in a bed that is made. The next one, set aside time for key tasks. So schedule that in. Minimize multitasking. Most people are not that good at multitasking. Too many jars that are open. We do things poorly. We create mistakes. We forget about things. Just do one thing at a time really, really well. Set aside that time for that task and focus on that one thing. Then lastly, pass on procrastination. Procrastination is delaying, being indecisive. So you've got 3 things to do. I'm not sure which to do. 5-10 minutes later, you still haven't done anything. Okay, just do something. Start with your first priority and just chip away at that. Move yourself closer to your goals. Your homework for this week, using the Covey matrix, fill out as many tasks for each of the 4 quadrants as you can. For this week, commit to completing each task in their right order, starting with where? The 2s. Find 2 other time management strategies that you can apply this week. We just looked at a whole heap in the previous slide. Go back over the video if you need to revisit that. And note down the changes to your stress and your productivity. So there you go. Any comments, any feedback, please write it down so we can chat about them at our next session. You're doing so well. Well done for you for doing your homework, getting stuck into these tasks, and for watching these videos. Look forward to chatting with you next week to see how you went. That's all for now. Here's your fist bump. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.